Now it's time to start working on the structure surrounding your actual clock face. Place a sheet of paper over the top of your clock and press down all the way around with your fingers until you have an impression of the clock face in your paper. Then flip your sheet of paper over and very gently cut in a circular groove all the way around until you have a nice circle. And then just go ahead and set this aside for a second. Now cut out a square 1 1/8 of an inch wide and 1 1/2 of an inch wide. We'll call this piece L. Place your paper circle directly in the center of piece L and trace around it. Now, very carefully, run your X-Acto blade along the inside of your drawn circle in order to cut out a corresponding pattern in part L. This photo shows the roughly cut out piece before sanding. Now wrap a piece of sandpaper around any object you can find that is close to the size of part L. The object now is to clean up the circle with the sandpaper while retaining a round shape, and this will take a lot of fine sanding and tuning. Now take your time with this process and frequently place your clock face into this piece in order to test the fit. You want to end up with a perfect circular frame around your clock face, so be very deliberate here. If you have to throw away piece L and create another, that's perfectly fine and normal. This isn't easy. Making a perfect circle is definitely not the easiest part of the project, but once you have that perfect circle, it's really satisfying. Once your clock face fits perfectly in your circle, round the outside edges of the circle. This gives a really nice finished appearance. This will also help to disguise any imperfections in the shape. Now, cut two pieces, both 1/8 of an inch wide and 1 1/2 inches long. These will be parts M. Now cut one piece 1/8 of an inch wide and 1 inch long. This will be part N. Lastly, cut a piece 3/8 of an inch wide and 1 inch long. This will be piece O. We will now be creating another picture frame. You have a number of options now appearance-wise. You can use the same object you used earlier to shape piece O in order to have a smaller, deeper curve as shown here, or you may choose to have a more gradual curve as shown here. You already know how to use your object to form a small, deep curve, so I'm going to show you now how to shape a gentler curve. So place piece O behind piece L. It should be flush with the top and centered. And yes, it is narrower than piece L. Don't worry about that. Now you should see a visible section of O showing underneath. Take a pencil and trace around the top of the circle onto piece O. This photo shows the line you just drew on a piece O. Now hand draw a line over the line you just drew. It should start in one lower corner and arc over the first line down into the corresponding lower corner. Very carefully cut and sand this section out now. The first line you drew was just for reference in order to help you maintain equal curvature as you drew your real line. Now glue pieces M, N, and O together as shown in the photo to create your top picture frame. This photo shows the frame glued together. Once your glue is dry, lightly sand one side of your frame, which will become the visible side. After you've sanded your frame, place it on top of piece L, which is resting on top of your clock face. You should now have an assembly which looks like this. Don't glue these pieces together yet, however. Note how the photo shows the clock face a little too high in an opening here. You want to make sure that your circle is centered in a picture frame where you wish before gluing in later in the process. Okay, now it's time to cut out the sides. Cut two pieces, both 3/4 of an inch wide and 1 1/2 of an inch long. These will be parts P. Glue each of these to the back of your frame, forming another three-sided box, while also gluing in piece L so the round hole is centered. Note how piece L has been lowered in the assembly now, so it's more centered within the frame. Sand piece L if necessary. Be very careful with glue here so you don't have glue seepage. Dried glue here would be difficult to remove. Once the piece is dry, sand the bottoms as necessary to ensure the entire assembly rests nice and flush on your molding strip, part K. Test fit your watch into your new assembly while resting it on top of your structure. Does the dial on the side of the watch prevent the watch from fitting into the assembly? If it does, this is easily remedied. With the tip of your blade, very carefully cut out a box or hole where needed so the dial allows the clock to fit. You should now be able to lay your watch into the box. Sand or shape your box where necessary to accommodate your watch. Now, cut out a small piece which is just large enough to cover the hole. With the tip of your blade, hollow out the middle of the piece by gently cutting it multiple times and brushing out the excess. This will ensure that when you glue the piece over the hole, that there will be room for the watch dial to extend. Now, just sand the front edges of this piece to your taste. The piece shown in this photo did not have its sides rounded. Instead, the edges were all sanded away flat. This photo shows the angle which was sanded into the piece. Now test fit your watch again. Does it fit into the assembly with your dial cover piece held against it? If so, you can carefully glue this little piece into the assembly. Now, while holding the watch in place, place the assembly on top of the base. Does your watch sit perfectly flush in position on top of piece K? Depending on the dimensions of your watch, you might need to place small pieces of basswood underneath it in order to hold it high enough in position. Conversely, you might need to sand a hollow space into the top side of piece K, or even need to cut through piece K completely. Each watch will be a little bit different. If your watch is simply too large to fit with the space, no matter how much room you create for it, it's fine to go ahead and just create a new picture frame and side pieces which are wider than your previous ones. This is actually why I haven't had you install this section to the clock yet. When this assembly is resting atop your clock, you can then glue the assembly to the clock. When the glue dries, the next order of business will be to install the internal supports which will hold your watch into position. Cut a strip of basswood which fits inside your clock from side to side. Now, rest your clock on its face with the watch in position. Place your strip of wood over the back of the clock and glue small squares of wood against the strip. On each side, you should have one square which a strip of wood rests upon and one square which holds the clock in a position. Do not glue the bar in. The goal here is to be able to lift the bar out of the way and be able to move the clock when the battery dies, or if you just need to reset the time. Okay, now for the top molding pieces. There will be 4 of them, all stacked upon one another and flush in the back. Okay, here come a bunch of measurements. So cut a piece 7/8 of an inch wide and 1 1/2 of an inch long. This will be part Q. Cut another piece 13/16 of an inch wide and 1 3/8 of an inch long. This will be part R. Cut another piece 3/4 of an inch wide and 1 1/4 of an inch long. This will be part S. Lastly, cut another piece 5/8 of an inch wide and 1 1/8 of an inch long. This will be part T. Now round the tops and bottoms of the front and sides of part Q. Round only the tops of the front and sides for pieces R, S, and T. Now stack them in a pyramid, all flush in the back, but do not glue them together yet. Do you have uniform 1/16 of an inch steps all the way up the front and sides? Sand and adjust your parts as necessary. Now, once you're satisfied with your pyramid, you can glue it together, making sure to place a weight on top of your assembly while drying, being careful also to ensure the backs of the pieces stay flush and the steps all the way up remain uniform. Now it's time to create the very top decorative piece for your pyramid. You'll need to draw the square a little bit differently than its predecessors. This square will be 1 1/4 of an inch long by 9/16 of an inch wide. But this time you'll draw the square so the grain of the wood runs from short edge to short edge, as shown in the photo. This will result in an interesting effect when stain is later applied, and it will also make it far easier to bend, as you'll see later. We'll call this part U. Now round the top and bottom edges of one of the long sides. Now place this piece in water for about an hour so it becomes pliable. Once the piece is waterlogged, wrap it lengthwise around the same thick round object you used when sanding your curve into piece O. Now wrap a piece of tape all the way around this piece and let it dry overnight. Now set part U on top of your pyramid. So how does it look? I know the bottoms won't be sitting flush yet, but in general, does part T underneath show by 1/16 of an inch around the back and front if this piece is flush with the back? If there is less than 1/16 of an inch showing, that's actually good. Set part U on top of a piece of sandpaper flat on your bench and gently and evenly move it from front to back over the sandpaper. You're sanding with the grain of the wood, if you will. Keep sanding until the bottoms are able to lay flat against the surface with no gaps showing. Now, place this piece on your pyramid again and check the spacing. Keep gently sanding this piece until you've achieved a correctly dimensioned unit. Now, set this piece onto your sheet of basswood. Trace around the inside of the arc onto the basswood. Now cut out this piece, which we will call V, and test fit it against the inside of the curve. Sand piece V to fit as necessary. Once your pieces fit well together, glue piece V into the front part of piece U about 1/16 of an inch from the front. Now you can glue this finished assembly on top of your pyramid. You can also now glue your pyramid to the top of your base. Once everything has dried, you can lay your entire clock on its back and gently sand it so the entire back of the clock is perfectly flush. Congratulations, you are done. The next video for this project will illustrate different stains and finishes you can apply to your clock.